Hello everybody, we are back, we are live. This is the How to Make Money with Excel series. How are you doing today? Yes, I had to have a little haircut yesterday and it's the most extreme haircut I've ever had in my life. Let me know in the chat what you think. Have you had to do this kind of thing? But today, I'm excited about this one. I'm always excited about this series. This is the process you're going to have to go through if you're now working full-time, maybe doing a bit of Excel hustle on the side. You want to move towards having Excel as your full-time career. I think there's three distinct stages you have to go through, which I call the 3 seasons, in order to work towards Excel being your full-time job, your full-time consultancy, whatever it might be. And there's actually a 4th bonus season that we're going to talk about today and a little bit about tomorrow. So welcome to everybody. We'll get onto that just in a second. Hello to everybody in the chat. Let me know, can you see me? Can you hear me? What do you think about the hair? Jasmine says, the hair, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Welcome, Jasmine. Welcome, Thomas. We're going to be looking through Thomas's file just in a second. Remember, with the static videos for this series, there's a download file and you can download the file. It'll get you thinking about how to get Excel working for you in your career. Gerrit is with us as well. Welcome, Gerrit. Good to have you with us. Ian is with us. Welcome, Ian Lamb. We're going to look through your homework in Members Monday. And is that everyone so far? Frank is with us from the Netherlands. Welcome, Frank. And I think that's everybody. Good to have you with us today. So let's go into the Excel file and let's talk about what I call the 3 seasons. Now, a lot of you in the chat, I think you'll be in season 1. This isn't quite Netflix series season 1. This is season 1, which means you're using Excel as a hobbyist, what I call a hobbyist. So what are the typical kind of emotions associated with this season? Well, maybe you're just feeling the possibilities of what Excel might do. Hopefully you're having fun with Excel. Maybe you've tried to do some kind of project, whatever it might be. I always talk about the importance of having an infinity project. So doing Excel to get something done for you, not a serious piece of work for something for you that you're going to enjoy, that's going to be really long term. And what infinity projects have I had? I've had the Excel chess computer project. I have the Excel offside game. Both of these you can see on the YouTube channel. So that's the kind of thing you might be dipping into as an Excel hobbyist. And then at the same time, you might be thinking, well, it would be great if I could make some money out of this sometime. And then maybe your mind's going as far as saying, if one day maybe I could do this part-time, it could be my job, and maybe even one day this could be my full-time career. So they're the kind of thoughts you might be having when you're in season 1. But the main question here, but right at the top here, before you do anything to move on to season 2 and to move towards making Excel part of your career, you've got to think, do you really love Excel? Yes, now's the time to ask those difficult questions. Do you really love Excel? When you're with Excel, how much of the time are you absolutely loving it? How much of the time are you kind of struggling with it and not enjoying it? You've got to make sure that love is there. If you're thinking about it in a more transactional way, yeah, Excel is okay and I could get paid to do some, I would suggest this is not the path for you. So you've got to ask yourself, do you love Excel? And are you going to be able to get through the hard times as well with Excel? If you're feeling the love, you'll know what I mean. Then you're in season 1. Maybe you're ready to move on to season 2. You've got to think, what particular part of Excel are you going to focus on? Remember, we've got to niche down. Oh yes, we've got to niche down in order to level up. So in season 1, you're not just thinking, yeah, Excel's for me. You're thinking a particular part of Excel is for me. I'm suggesting you specialize in a particular aspect of Excel. Excel VBA is my specialism. We discussed in the first video in the series, there's 5 or 6 different specialisms that you could have in Excel. I'm suggesting to you, it's too general to say that you're just an Excel consultant. What else should you be doing at this stage? Well, you got to be the Excel guy. And again, we go back to the second video in the series, make sure you're the Excel guy. Make sure you're getting the word out there that you love solving Excel problems. You've got to think about this strategically. If you can start bringing people kind of into your circle and just having informal chats about Excel, maybe somebody calls you up and trying to do this with Excel, in season 2, season 3, they could be your paying clients. So let's see what Thomas said about this point. So Thomas says, I'm crazy about Excel. Always love numbers, and Excel with all its formulas and functions really opens a new world to me. So fantastic stuff, Thomas. Looks like you've got that initial enthusiasm, that deep love for solving problems with Excel. So what I'd say to Thomas would be, what is your specialism going to be? And even if you're pretty confident in lots of different areas of Excel, you know, I'll describe myself as pretty confident in lots of different areas, for marketing purposes, to be able to build a little customer base, to be able to move on to season 2, season 3, you've got to specialize in something. This is what I recommend. And previously in the series, Thomas has said he's thinking about specializing in Excel shortcuts. So let me know in the chat, are you in season 1? Are you in love with Excel? And are you kind of building up what might be a roster of clients in the future, getting known as the Excel guy? Let me know in the chat. DC says, whoa, another one that's got the COVID cut. Yes, yeah. Let's be honest, it probably is a COVID cut. Frank says, looks good. In the Netherlands, it's not allowed to go to the hairdresser at the moment. They are closed. Exactly, you know, and my partner, she started kind of cutting it. And we were thinking maybe we could cut it properly. In the end, we were just like, no, bzz, and we got the buzzer on it. Thomas says, your hair's nearly as short as mine. Okay, there we go. And welcome to Haldo Min in the chat, and welcome to RCD said. Fantastic to see you guys. Good to have you with us. So let's move on. Season 1 to season 2. And, you know, this stream isn't just about considering these seasons in isolation. It's also the key activities, those key milestones that are going to move you from one season to the next. So let's not miss out on those. Like, one thing you're going to have to think about in order to move to season 2, which is where you're making Excel work for you as a part-timer, just a part-timer at this stage. Can you free up enough time for those Excel projects? Yes, working in the evenings, if we love Excel, we might be able to tolerate that. Certainly at the beginning you will. It gets tougher later. Working at the weekends, you know, whatever it might be. But long term, you're going to have to free up some serious time. This is what I'm suggesting to you. And this brings a lot of important questions into play. You know, if you want more time, then assuming you're now full-time employed, you're going to have to negotiate some time to do your Excel work. And then your employer might say to you, well, why do you want this additional time? You know, what are you doing? So you've got to make a kind of strategic decision. How are you going to communicate this to, if you're currently employed? And I know a lot of people watching the stream are currently full-time employed. How are you going to handle that? Now, the way I personally did it was I was fully transparent, 100% transparent. I was saying right at the beginning, so this is back in 2009, 2010, I went and got a job with an organization, but I said to them, listen, this job, it's not a career job for me. I'm looking to earn some income so that I can start my Excel VBA consultancy. I am in season 2. That's not what I said to them. Maybe I should have said to them at the time. So the strategy that worked for me was total transparency. And that employer, you know, bought into that. And I had a champion. I had 2 or 3 champions in that organization. Remember, a champion is somebody who can advocate for you in internal meetings. And it just worked out really well for me. But you've got to work out what's going to work for you. You know, my parents always said to me, honesty is the best policy. So if you're in doubt, I would be totally open with your employer. You never know what they might say. They might say, oh, actually, we've got some Excel problems. You know, your manager might say, well, in the senior management meeting last week, we were going to hire a data analyst. So there might be benefits for the organization as well. And then in material terms, in the financial sense, you know, if you're going to work a bit less or not work at all full time, how is that going to affect your income? And you've got to be thinking about the required income balance between these two sources. And we've mentioned through the series, Excel work tends to be thought of and tends to come in projects. Yeah. So we talk to a prospective customer, scope out a project, deliver the project, and then get paid for the project. I'm suggesting you've got to try to move away from that mindset if you want to get into season 2 and then into season 3. Welcome to the membership, Greg Webb, by the way. Thank you very much for your support. I'm saying we've got to change our mindset there. We've got to not be jobbers. Remember a few videos ago, I told you the story when someone told me I was a jobber, and I was like, yeah, it's just jobs. You don't want to move from one job to the next. When I was first starting my Excel career, I was like, yes, I can move from one project to the next. Over time, that gets stressful. I'd even suggest it's not really sustainable in the long term. What I'm trying to get at is you need other income streams to support that income balance where you're transitioning from a full-time position into your Excel job. What does that mean? You know what I'm going to say. And just to underline it, I'm going to get the slide up. You must create a lot of content. And this is why you've got to be strategic. You've got to get ahead of the game. You've got to start creating content now. And it's been great in this series. I've seen some people create content. Some people just sending videos to me. That's great. I've seen Thomas has done some videos. We have Mario do a video. I had Bart sent me a video, just a screen recording, because we know that being able to record the screen is so important in Excel projects. So I'm saying this whole issue of balancing income is going to be a lot easier if you can establish some other income streams. And the easiest way to do that is to create content. Does that mean you're going to make money tomorrow? No. Does it mean you're going to make money in 6 months? Probably not. But in a couple of years, if you're consistent with content, you could be doing training courses. You could be doing Members Monday membership like we have here. You could have revenue from YouTube ads or advertising on another website. All of this helps. It helps smooth out the cash flow. Yeah, because if we're doing projects, we're going to have cash coming in at different points. You're not going to have a monthly income. So it's great to have these income streams that are monthly, more regular, that can help to smooth things out. It's going to help you move through the seasons. Let's see what Thomas says about this one. So I'm currently a contract trainer. So I have quite a bit of time available, and my employer has no objection if I find another work to supplement my income. So I'd say that looks like a good situation Thomas is in. So we've got some time. What does that mean? Yes, we can start making some content, and we've got, goodwill from the employer. So Thomas, I'll definitely be speaking to the employer, making sure they know exactly what you're trying to do. A senior manager, they're going to talk to people in the organization, but they're going to be, when they're playing golf at the golf club, okay, no one's playing golf at the moment, when they're on their Friday night social Zoom call, they'll be talking to other people like them in other organizations as well. This is why you have to be the Excel guy. So let me know in the chat, how does season 2 sound? And do you think you're in season 2? If you're already doing some paid Excel work, as a side hustle, weekends, evenings, whenever, then you are in season 2. Maria's with us. So Maria, just mentioned you. Welcome, Maria. Frank is with us, of course. I like Excel VBA. Meanwhile, I also started learning Python. So Frank, what's your first impressions of Python as opposed to VBA? And Frank also says, in the past, for a former employer, I solved many problems with Excel. Wish I knew what I know about the time. Wish I knew what I know now about VBA at that time. Absolutely, VBA is a game changer. It's so difficult to explain what VBA does to people who have never seen VBA or worked with VBA, but it is a game changer. I say it's an order of magnitude better than most of the other stuff you can do in Excel. Thank you to Greg once more. Greg, welcome to our membership. And today, special day today, certainly for our live content, because we are going straight into Members Monday after this stream. Yes, Members Monday is a weekly live stream with me, but it's more than that. It's our little members community. So when you sign up, you get access to all of the previous live streams. So 22 live streams you're going to have access to. One thing I do want to say about the membership is it's not like 30 for 30 in the sense that it's not a course where one session leads on to the next. That's not how the membership works. In the memberships, we'll do 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks maximum on a particular issue that we're going to try to solve, usually using Excel VBA. And that issue, that mini project is usually sent in by a member. So it's all real world. It's all about creating that real world value. So go ahead, click join below this video and you can join us for Members Monday, which is at 5 o'clock UK time. We'll be going straight into it after this stream. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Welcome. RCD says, I'm a CAD developer. Mainly C+, okay. Diego says, I am not in any season whatsoever. I enjoy your video at the moment. I wish I could get to where you are at right now. It takes a lot of patience. Yes, Diego, it takes so much patience. You know we've got to be patient. We've got to be strategic. I've been doing this for 10 years now. And let me give you one tip, Diego. Everything, I was a jobber. Yeah, I was doing VBA projects, doing okay. Everything got easier once I started creating online content in 2012. You can go back through our videos. Our first YouTube video was in 2012. And from about 2014, 2015, things got a lot easier because those videos were bringing in customers. Those videos became an income stream. And now, yeah, this is where we are now. But I would say one thing. I don't feel I've succeeded at all. I don't feel I'm in the end game. I don't feel I've made it. You know, with a bit of success, I've had very limited success really compared to some people, but with a bit of success, you always reframe, or I think you should always try to reframe. Yeah, so I'm looking now to build, for example, the Members Monday community. You know, I don't just want to be an Excel consultant. I would like to have a business education community, making business education affordable, accessible to all. So you always have another challenge. You can always reframe. Craig Fletcher, welcome. Craig says, I've come across organizations who won't allow VBA macros. Maintenance, and I imagine macros used to be less reliable, robust than they are now. Are they in the minority in your experience? This is a great question from Craig, and I recommend you look across the chat to read this question. I would say in bigger organizations, this can be an issue. And by bigger, I'm talking about multinational organizations. When it's an issue, you know, I've got 3 multinationals, you know, on my books as customers, and I do projects for them, not in the past few months, but last year, I was doing projects for them. So it doesn't mean they don't take any VBA work. There's lots of VBA work there. But larger organizations, they have compliance, of course. So they want their systems to work in a certain way, and they don't necessarily want employees to be able to be creative with those systems, to be able to kind of create bespoke functionality in them and stuff like that, because that means it's not complying with the kind of setup that the organization wants. In other words, it creates problems. That's what it's like if you work for a big organization. You do have to sacrifice some creativity in order to create these systems that are going to work across an organization. Yes, so some organizations for that reason are against VBA. Not against VBA, but they don't encourage VBA in specific situations. Does that mean you shouldn't be doing VBA? Absolutely not. That's just a particular customer segment. It's not the majority of the market by any means. There's many other customer segments that you should be looking at. And again, we know we've got a niche down to level up. So who are you going to be working for? I would say, you know, to kind of complete the answer to this question, the most successful projects I've had are generally with small companies that are very agile, very responsive. You can get quick feedback from them. And they're companies where they typically don't have another data management system. So it's a company that's big enough to have a good amount of data and in a sector where they need data analysis, but it's not big enough to consider investing in a huge data management system, whatever it might be, and not big enough to be able to employ somebody full time as some kind of VBA data analyst. So you've got to do this market segmentation. and we've spoken about different kind of strategic business strategy techniques, but market segmentation is going to help you. And one way to segment a market is the size of the customer, the size of the business. Do you want to aim those big multinational corporations? Believe me, they're contracting lots of Excel VBA work. Do you want to aim at small companies? Do you want to aim at individuals? And then what sector do you want to aim at? You've got to do that kind of segmentation. Aim at a specific person and be known for a specific thing in Excel. That is the way to get traction in this market. Good. RCD says, it's amazing that everyone codes differently. There's no right or wrong, just have to have fun. Yep, absolutely. When you get to a certain point in your coding, it becomes more an art than a science. It's a case of personal preference, personal coding style. With that said, it does have to work, of course. And there's some objective measures that we can apply. For example, runtime. How long does a program take to execute? That we could use to objectively measure the efficacy of a program, for example. But that attitude is the right attitude to have. Don't be discouraged if your code is not the same as my code or the same as your teacher's code, whatever it might be. If it works, it's good for the purpose. And most importantly, you understand it and can have a critical attitude to it, understand the strengths and weaknesses and where you can improve. That's all you need to do. Diego, to Craig, my past employer wouldn't allow users to use VB scripting without the approval of the PMO team, as it created issues that led to revenue leakage. From the business standpoint, it is sensible. Yes, Diego, I think you're kind of building on the point I was talking about previously. So good conversation in the chat there. Good. So what about season 3? So when do you know that you're ready to kind of take the plunge and go ahead with Excel VBA, whatever it might be, whatever part of Excel, as a full-time career? And I was deliberate about my choice of language there. There will be a sense of taking the plunge, taking a leap of faith. There will never be a perfect time to do this because of the way we're coming at this. You're going to have other commitments, so you're not going to be able to devote enough time to Excel and your business for it to suddenly become a full-time thing. I'm saying there's certainly an element of risk taking here. I'm also saying that risk should be qualified, and it should be, an informed decision to make when you take that risk to go full-time with it. So how might you qualify that risk? How might you evaluate that decision? Things like, how many customers do you have? And remember, the kind of more important question there is, how much income do you have? How much money is coming into your company or into you as an individual, depending on how you set the whole thing up. So that might mean customers, of course, clients, and hopefully you're moving away from just single projects. Maybe you have some retainer agreements with certain customers. So you do a certain amount of work each month and get a monthly payment each month and have a 12-month contract. Say that's gold dust for your cash flow. And then maybe you have the kind of one-off projects coming in. So again, think about segmentation here. So I can segment my clients like that. This client is a monthly payment. This client is one-off projects. This client I only ever did one project with. Do a bit of segmentation on the people that you work with. It's best to have a blend of different customers there and a blend of different income sources. So it's not just about the projects. It should now be about the online content. It's going to be online content, guys. Thinking about how you might possibly create these kind of passive income streams. The only way that's worth considering really is via online content. Does it have to be YouTube? Not necessarily. It could be podcasts. It could be something else. And we've spoken about that previously in the series. So if that's looking good, and I can actually tell you how I did it. I remember this back in 2010. So I was in season 2. I had a part-time job, the same job I was talking about earlier in the stream. And then I was actually living with my parents at the time. So I did my master's and then lived with my parents for about 6 months. But I know my mum does watch, so she'll probably correct that. So I had about 6 months living with my parents. Not very cool to be living with your parents when you're old. And then I thought, now's the time. I've got to move out. I've got to go and rent a place. So I went and rented a place in Nottingham. The rent was £500 a month. and I got a project that was worth about £4,000, I think. And I had other work as well. So the way it worked for me at the beginning, I thought monthly, I've got to pay the rent, and then I've got to pay my monthly expenses. I had the figure of £1,000 in mind. So how long can I survive? Yeah. And when I first moved out, it was about 4 months that I could survive if I got no more work. But luckily, that's not how, well, I say luckily, but that's not how it played out, because I did get more projects. And when you do take the plunge, it gives you another burst of energy, because there's much more urgency to what you're doing now when you start doing it full time. But this was my measure, and people say to me, well, not very often, but sometimes people say to me, how do you kind of measure success in the business? I've still got that in my mind. If I didn't get another project, how long could I actually survive? And in the early days of the business, I was like 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then 18 months. And then eventually you stop thinking about it. And that's when you're making progress with the business. How do you get to that stage? Projects, doing a great job on projects leads to more projects, leads to retainer deals. But more importantly, building up that passive income, building up some online content. YouTube revenue for me has been a nice steady income stream for 3 or 4 years now, and that's freed up time to allow me to create more YouTube content, because long term, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow, where is the scale? You've got to start thinking about now, where is the scale in the business? Yeah, quite quickly you can get to a stage where you're working full time on Excel projects. Yeah. There's a problem now, because even if someone else wants you to do a project, you're going to have to say no, or you're going to have to say, I'm going to do the project later. There's a limit to growth built into that business model. I wish I'd realized this earlier. I wish somebody explained this to me earlier. So you can only get so far. And in fact, you get to a point where if you start taking on more projects, the quality of the service actually goes down. And that can have a detrimental effect on your business. And I went through this process totally. So where is the scale? You can't scale that business model. You can scale some kind of business model where you have online content. That's the great thing about YouTube. When someone clicks a YouTube video, I don't need to be there to start the video. But that's a bit like what it's like when you're doing a project. You have to be there to deliver the work. So how are you going to generate this kind of passive income? I'm a bit wary about using the word passive income, because there's lots of people online talking about passive income who are maybe not the most reputable people. But in this case, it can be passive income for you, whether you're selling courses online. And that's something I should have done better at, selling courses. It is a massive mistake for my business that I don't have a paid course. You can go onto Udemy and platforms and see how many courses people have sold. Some people have sold 50,000 courses for $20 a time. That's all income I've missed out on. Don't miss out on it. Get it right. If I started doing online content earlier, maybe I would have found time and found the capability to be able to do that. And bear in mind, as I said at the beginning, it's never going to feel perfect. You are going to have to take the risk, but it's not an uncalculated risk. You're going to assess it, and you're going to hopefully make it a success. But bear in mind, it might not be a success, and it might not be a success that might not be through any fault of your own. And you shouldn't be kind of judging, like attaching too much of your self-esteem to this. It is hard. I know lots of people who tried to do this and haven't done too well. I've done it because I'm a bit of a crazy dude in many ways. I actually look like a crazy dude now. That's for sure. But I can be a bit kind of obsessive about things. The main thing about me is I just hate losing. I don't know if Steve's watching today. Steve's in my family. My mum might be watching. She's in my family. I hate losing, and I've made big sacrifices, I think, in terms of my mental health, in terms of my social life. I've made big sacrifices over the years to make this work. But if you can find all that within yourself, keep putting in the work over a long period of time, you can build a business model that might be scalable. And I'm just starting to feel the benefits of that scale in my business now. So Thomas says, we'll have to start this from scratch. So it might take some time to build up. It's definitely going to take time to build up. This is the reason why I'm writing my current book and might even revise my first book to remarket it. Yeah. So Thomas is creating some content. It's not typical online content like YouTube, but creating a book, and selling it as an ebook. Thomas, I'd love to see you do some companion videos to that book. So can you make some videos talking through the chapters, 10 tips for getting the most out of my book? I think you could have some great content there. So there's the 3 seasons, and I've just spoken briefly about the bonus season. And we're going to speak more about that tomorrow. Check out the static video tomorrow. Okay, let's see what's going on in the chat. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. 15 viewers at the moment, 7 likes, and a new member. That's great to see. Okay, so Sharia is with us today. Welcome, Sharia. Is it true that professional VBA coders still Google for syntax? Yes, I do all the time. If yes, can we as a beginner take a medium-sized project and build blocks only searching from across forums? Experience. Great question, this one. I could do a whole video series on this one. So Sharia is saying if you can Google stuff, just type it into Google and get the code, then why can't you do whole projects? Well, it's because we can't reduce a VBA project to just some pieces of code. There's lots of other skills that wrap around the project, that wrap around the code, that are more important than the coding itself. For example, in order to interact with a client and to have a project in the first place, you've got to interact with a client. Can you interact with a client effectively? And then it's not just about the code in VBA. If you take lots of different codes and kind of stick them all together, are they going to work together effectively? That is certainly not guaranteed. So just by dividing the problem into parts and saying, I can solve that part, 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 does not mean you can solve the whole thing. Which is why I would say, yes, I Google syntax all the time, but I've developed a set of skills that are very difficult to describe, but that's why I call them the meta skills. They're the skills that are the actual critical skills to getting Excel projects done, because you're absolutely right. Code is commoditized. I always say this, there's no secret coding. It's all out there for anybody to see. So people are coming to me for a different reason. I can combine all those routines together. They like working with me, dare I say. They see I've got a body of work online. Could be a whole number of different reasons, but this is why I say, don't obsess about the code. The code is one thing. But there's so many other skills that wrap around it that are actually just as important as the coding. Great question, though, from Sharia there, and I hope I answered that to some extent. Okay, just going to go straight down to the bottom here. Loving this interaction with the chats, in the chat, by the way. Okay, good. So let me know, if you want me to answer your question. Put it back in the chat now, because I'm looking at the chat now. Werner with a great point, just building on what I said. I find structuring a model the most difficult part. Absolutely. You can Google all the code, but if you don't have the right structure in your spreadsheet, so the right number of sheets, a clear role for each sheet, thinking which sheet is the client going to interact with, which sheets are the clients not going to interact with. If you can't answer those critical questions, which I think only really come with experience, though you can get some help along the way from people like me, then you won't be able to do your VBA course. So it's really much more than just Googling syntax here. Okay, Maria says, Chris, where usually as a forum can you look for help on any code, not just Google? I don't know, Maria. I can't honestly answer that question. Syntax wise, maybe once a day, I might Google it. I don't have a forum I go to. I literally put it in Google, and then I usually take the top answer. So I can't help you there, Maria. I would say you shouldn't be dependent on forums. If you don't know the code, then, what are the sources of code? How might you find out the code? Well, you might know the code, know it organically. You can also record the code. Just by knowing the basic structures, loops, conditional statements, things like that, and having the macro recorder, you can get a lot done. Okay, good. So back to our file just briefly. So yeah, there's actually a fourth season here, and I just began to speak about it at the end there. And this season is, can you turn your job into a business? Whoa, it's been a problem for me over the years. I've designed myself a job. I've not designed myself a business. I realized this about 4 or 5 years ago, and I actually went into setting up what I'm doing as a business. That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, guys, in the static video release, which will be tomorrow afternoon UK time. I'm going to talk about how you can scale up your Excel consultancy. Fantastic stuff. So one more time, at 5 o'clock today, we are going into Members Monday. It's your Excel VBA learning community. You know, people talking about what do you actually need to learn Excel VBA. The best thing you can have is a community of people. I'm going to help. You can see the people in the chat who have symbols by their names. Jasvin is in the chat today. Ian was in the chat earlier on, and there's plenty of other people in the chat as well. They're part of our membership. And we have a membership. We have a weekly live tutorial with me. You have access to the previous live streams. You have access to a Facebook group. You get to hang out in members hangout. So why not give it a try? Come along to Members Monday. Join our members community. We're starting at 5 o'clock today. That's in about 20 minutes. I would love to see you there. So there we go. That is the 3 seasons. It's a way for you to kind of plot a route from here to where a place where Excel is really working for you in your career. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about the 4th season in our static video release. Then our final live stream in the series, final one in the series, is coming this Wednesday. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. I've had a great time. I hope you got something out of the stream, and I will see you very soon. Take care.